So thank you for joining us this morning. This talk is on the responsibility and reality of hackers. And I have to credit some folks. This idea has actually come from the closing plenary at ShmooCon several years ago was a panel discussion on the social responsibility of hackers. What does it mean? What do we owe? And I originally thought about doing it as a panel, but for those of you that have not seen that or aren't aware of it, there were a bunch of people, mostly Shmoo Group people, who all have done a lot for the security community and beyond. But at one end of the panel was Johnny Long, and he sort of made everybody else look like they weren't pulling their weight. So I'm going to do this myself so I can say both ends of the spectrum. But first, why would anyone listen to me about this? For those who don't know me, even if you do know me, that's probably a better reason not to listen to me. If you've seen Bruce Potter speak, he does a pretty good disclaimer. Mine's pretty much the same. Do not take my word for anything. Do not take anyone else's word for anything. Bring that into your experience. Make it work for you. And hopefully you can come up with your own conclusions. I do have a little bit of experience in working with communities, volunteering. I have done things as diverse as spend a winter volunteering every spare hour, working on a reproduction of a wooden ship, then sailing it as a volunteer in midwinter. I don't suggest sailing out of New Bedford, Massachusetts in February. Done a lot with B-sides. I've even done quite a bit with blacksmith organizations. I serve on multiple boards, which takes a lot of time. And I've done some research and outreach in stress and burnout in our community, which is another issue that I've spoken about repeatedly. So I do have a little bit of experience in engaging our community. So let's dive in. Yeah, not that kind of hacker. That's mainstream media hacker. That's not us. Here we go. This is a little more honest for those of us that I think that's a bit more like us, isn't it? So what does hacker mean, though? I mean, this is a definition. We've lost this definition. As much as I fight for it, and some of you do, we've lost that. Inside this room, inside this community. But let's pick a couple of key things. Here's one that I think really summarizes being a hacker. It is a childlike sense of wonder and destruction, right? We want to know how things work. We're curious. I think that's one of the key things, if not the key thing. Another big part of that is we like to test limits. Let's see how far we can go. Let's see what happens when it breaks. And following that, go on, click. To me, as a network admin, a systems admin, as somebody who does things, there's a cycle that a lot of hackers go through, a lot of us go through, which is let's break stuff. Let's push it to the limits. Then we'll fix it. As we fix it, let's fix it better. And then we're going to repeat the cycle. And where I actually developed that particular approach to the world was as a car guy. That's like a hot rodder ethic right there. I'm going to drive this car into the ground until it breaks, then I'm going to fix it better, and then I'm going to drive it into the ground until it breaks, then I'm going to fix it better, and I'm going to drive it into the ground until it breaks me because I'm now going too fast. But that sort of mentality of pushing limits and testing things is what we're about. We see ourselves and the world around us as a puzzle. We want to understand it. We want to know where we fit into these things. We want to tweak things. We want to swap pieces around. We want to have fun with it. So what about giving back to the community or anyone else? What about sharing, helping, teaching? These are often not discussed in hacker culture. Some places they do. Hacker spaces tend to be very communal. Not always, though. So let's back up. If you are in a position to help a friend, to give someone a hand, you do. That's not being a hacker, that's being human. It gets interesting, though, when we cross a line into technology. What are our technology roles? How does that change it? Does that make it impersonal because part of what we're talking about is technology, computers? Obviously, I don't think so. So which leads me to this set of questions. What do hackers owe? How much and to whom?
On the other side. So walk through those doors right there.
Maybe we need our version of this. Although we should do it better because if you've spent any quality time anywhere, you've probably stared at one of these on the hospital wall. I'm not exactly young anymore. I've got a few opportunities to. You'll note the scale goes 0 to 5 on the top and 0 to 10 on the bottom. You know, hopefully they're better at medicine than math. Hackerosity index? That doesn't quite work. You know, that's a bit high-minded for us, isn't it? I think that may be a bit high-minded for us. How about this scale? Does this work? Johnny Long, hopefully most of you know him. Johnny Long has, as I said, he kind of stole the show, and this was before Hackers for Charity really went cranking. Moved to Uganda, teaches people computer skills, builds computer labs, helps feed people, helps rebuild communities that have been damaged by fire. He does it partly because of his Christian beliefs, but also Johnny just knows it's the right thing to do. He gives back and uses his technology and his skills and his connections with this community to give back not within the community to the world at large, some of the most poor and desperate people in the world. He definitely belongs at one end of the spectrum. And not to pander to the audience, but I would like to pause and say there's somebody else that's towards that end of the spectrum that isn't with us this year. Brad Smith, the nurse, is one of those people that has given a lot back to this community. And I know we all look forward to seeing him again out and about. So at that other end of that scale, I put these guys. Common story. So we're in southern Florida. We're still pretty far away from this, but a lot closer than I am at home. This is Vieques Island. Anybody remember Vieques? 1999, David Saenz, a native of Vieques, was working near the bomb range for the US military. He was killed by a stray bomb. It brought to a head the damage caused to the environment and the community of Vieques and Puerto Rico by using this bomb range. And it spurred a bunch of protests. And these protests continued to build over the course of a year from 1999 to 2000. And in 2000, a young man who was 16 years old at the time, Brooklyn native but of Puerto Rican descent, was both emboldened and enraged as he saw what was happening in what he considered his homeland. And he took a classic hacktivist role. He found out most of the government websites for Puerto Rico were run by one corporation. They were all contracted out. He took them all down, replaced them with messages condemning the continued use of Vieques Island. That's criminal. It's attacking government property, but he was doing what he thought was right. And, this hacktivism thing's not quite as clean as we think. His name is Hector Monsegur, who we all know as Sabu now, who was arguably the most or one of the most technical people in lulzsec and anti-sec. One of the people that came up in reaction to this was a jester, a patriotic hacker, hacktivist. Also a criminal, but he's doing what he thinks is right. So this idea of giving back and doing what you think is right gets into some interesting areas quickly. Bradley Manning did what he felt was appropriate. He socially engineered his way into accessing materials which he felt were important to be out there. Agree with him or disagree with him, he was maybe not a skilled hacker, but he did some social engineering and did a lot of things. Which of course leads to this guy who has a history in the community as a hacker, Adrian Lam. He had to make some hard choices. He made some choices which were not popular with a lot of folks. We're all dancing around this organization, which is where a lot of people think they're doing good by pumping stuff in. I can't put that up without putting this guy up there. He thinks he's doing the world a favor. It's hard to say. You all have to make your own decisions about these people. But my point is that that scale that I put up was really just sort of a thought exercise, because it's not simple. There isn't good, bad. That's something we battle in hacker culture anyway. We try to fight that idea that breaking things is bad. We try to draw out the line, and that's where we've completely lost mainstream media. So there isn't a key on the keyboard that says this is good, this is bad, where's the balance? And at this point, I've been leading you astray. So we have an angry child here screaming at me. I've been working this off the assumption that I actually do owe anyone anything. We all have families. They are a joy and a torment, often simultaneously. We have workloads, either student loads or business workloads, or a combination of both. Our industry appears to be recession-proof. However, that doesn't mean the economy at large doesn't have an impact on us. Anybody here who's a homeowner, with the exception of a couple of places in the world, your property values have taken a beating, but rents haven't gone down even in this economy. You may just have to work until you can pay your bills off. You may be buried under student debt. A lot of young folks in this industry, we have the luxury now of actually being able to enter this industry with a degree in information security. And as you enter this field with that degree, you're also entering it with a student loan debt. Life doesn't move slowly. The demands that are placed on us tend to be immediate. I may or may not have created this one and sent it to my boss some months ago. And the end result is something that I've done a little work on, which is dealing with stress and burnout and exhaustion. I'm ripping through this. Good. You guys have to participate when we get rolling. So my point is it's okay to say no. I think a lot of people in society at large, I will say here in the U.S. particularly, but I think there are a lot of people who have no desire to participate and don't think they owe anything, and I disagree with that. But in our community, we do tend to do that. Where does that leave us? I want your input, but I want to throw one thought out there. That's not really Gandhi tweeting, by the way. Actually, that quote comes from someone who would prefer I didn't say it was my wife. But anyway, altruism is one thing, but let's be honest. Part of giving back does give you some visibility. There is value to you in being part of the community, an active part of the community. But doing it for, the older I get, this is an observation of me, the older I get, the less I care why you do good stuff. When I was young and idealistic, I wanted to do good stuff for the right reasons. I'm over that. You can do it because you're egotistical, I don't care. You can do it because you think it's going to help you get dates. We do have an interesting community, and there are a lot of opportunities. But I think if I keep pushing the laser pointer thing, that's not going to advance the slides, is it? So one of the things that I want to throw out here, and I really do want you to participate, but one of the things that we've discovered through the stress and burnout study is that one of the ways to actually help ease your stress and burnout is to do more. This is counterintuitive. But you have to do things that are important to you and are satisfying to you. If you volunteer, teach, mentor, but you do these in situations that make you feel good about yourself, that extra time reinforces what you know. It reminds you that if you're here, you know things that are of value to other people. Even if this is your first event, even if you're new to the industry, even if you're not actually in security yet, but you're trying to make that transition. If you're here, there are things that you know that a scout troop, a church group, a school event, a local ISSA chapter, a local Linux user group, somebody would learn something from you. But it's got to be something that's important and rewarding to you to do something. This is one of my favorite stories lately that I tell a lot, but just to put this in perspective, you know, sometimes we need reminders of what's important in life. For those that don't know, that's not B.B. in the background, but B.B. King's guitar was named Lucille. Has been every guitar he's had since 1949. This one was named Lucille because he actually was playing a gig in Twist, Arkansas, and those days they put a barrel in the floor, half filled it with kerosene, lit it on fire. That was heat. So this was definitely a dive joint, even more of a dive than Mac's Deuce Club over in South Beach. And a couple of guys got fighting, knocked the barrel over, the place went up in flames, people died. He ran out, realized his precious Gibson guitar was in, ran back in, grabbed his guitar, got out. He'd spent $35 on it. That was important. Next day, he discovered a couple of people had died and others had been injured. And later, he heard out that the two guys were fighting over a woman named Lucille. And that's why every guitar he's owned, starting with that one in 1949, has been called Lucille. Hopefully, you don't have to nearly die and realize you've done something stupid to put things in perspective. But what's important to you? When you find what's important to you, you'll find yourself in the snow, shoveling off scaffolding 30 feet in the air, working on a 110-foot spar-length wooden square-rigged ship as a volunteer. You'll also find yourself speaking at conferences. You'll find yourself mentoring young people. You'll find yourself doing things that give back, not necessarily within the hacker community. The hacker community did not really take much advantage of my time sailing square riggers or working on the replicas of Bounty and Mayflower. The CISO event is starting now, by the way. So for those that are part of that, yeah. So that is, I won't be offended if you run out. So anyway, what's important? That's, and at this point, you know, I'd like to see if I can get some interaction, but the things that we've spoken about, you know, teaching. Teaching is fantastic because it makes you learn what you think you know. Has anyone here taught at any level of, you know, small classes, big classes? Do you agree that when you teach, you have to learn something? There's an immediate value to you. Even if you teach for free, it forces you to learn what, you know, your craft. If you're pretty good at something, if you're like most of us in the United States or, you know, Western Europe, and you're ignoring IPv6 and you kind of get IPv6, I challenge you to teach some people, you know, maybe a 1-hour session at a local user group on IPv6. Just that, you will learn a lot. You will get value personally. It's not the altruism, although it's cool. I hope you do. You'll teach other people. Mentoring. This is another one. Mentoring's a tough one. Anybody here participate in the InfoSec Mentors project? It's sort of hit or miss, but it's a really great idea. The execution depends on matching up the right folks. They make a good effort. infosecmentors.org. But it doesn't have to be that formal. One of the great things about mentoring people is that, there's no way to soften this one. One of the great things about mentoring people is that it proves just how much of a hypocrite you are. What do I mean by that? So you're on the phone. Somebody's at some point in their career. They need to make a decision. Maybe it's, do I stay or do I go? Maybe it's, do I go for that degree? Maybe it's, I have a trade-off that I have to make, and which way does this go? And then you talk through this on the phone or maybe via email, but usually on the phone, and you have a really candid and frank discussion. And you share your experiences. They feel good, you hang up and say, man, if only I'd listened to myself, I wouldn't be, which is absolutely true. And it helps you because it shows a reflection on what you're saying. It's like, wow, I actually know this stuff. Why don't I do it? It moves you forward. Like I said, I hope you do these things for altruistic reasons because it's the right thing to do. But there's real value to you and the community. Share what you know at any scale. There's another one. When we say donate, we think about money first. And I would like you to think about money last. It's on this list last for a reason. Donate your time. That's what the previous slide was mostly about. Your time is precious, it is valuable. So I come back to what I've been harping on, which is know what's valuable to you and the people around you, but donate your time. And that could be anything. So we're talking about hacker property. But if you're somewhere where you have a community that has people in need, by whatever definition of need, and you feel better about the fact that because we're in an industry which is effectively recession-proof, if you happen to have the right skill set, and tends to pay well, maybe you feel the best use of your time is not to put back into this community, but to put back in the community at large. That's fine. If you feel better about yourself, you're going to do a better job. Time, wherever you do it. You know, hacker spaces are a great way to do it, but sometimes they get a little clicky. You don't want to be another click. I mean, InfoSec, we have enough of those as it is. Equipment, one of the things that hacker spaces have been good for is, I'm sure I'm not the only technology pack rat in the room. There may be folks who have a few things kicking around, right? Right, I know that. It's like winter's coming, I don't care. That means I can close the windows part way down so that the servers in my office actually warm the place up. But there are other people that are learning. So there's that rack of gray-green Cisco gear that's too old to do anything with. You won't even use in your home lab anymore. But there's somebody trying to figure out networking stuff at your local hackerspace or other club that probably could take advantage of that. So share what you've got. And your significant other will really be happy because every little bit of crap we take out of our pile makes them happy. There's an opportunity too, because if you had that Cisco box or that Sun box or that Juniper box in your pile of crap and you find somebody to give it to, deliver that with a little knowledge. You probably have all that Cisco crap, for example, because you spent your time as a network administrator, network security administrator. You remember it. Grab your O'Reilly, you know, not to pitch for them, but you know the book, the iOS cookbook and iOS in a nutshell. Those two books, they're about the same as CCIE, I think. Maybe not, but do that. And then money, finally. As I said, if you are financially in a position where you can afford to do it, that's okay. I put that last, though, for a reason. You know, Johnny Long always needs money. Hackers for Charity always needs money. Brad Smith, his wife, Nina, has just moved or is moving right now to be closer to him for his rehabilitation. There are a lot of other things. There's a food pantry near you. Even in the United States, there are hungry people. Whatever it is that you can do, that doesn't really feed back into the hacker community, but that's all right. Part of being a hacker is being human. And here's one, too, that I want to point out. There are some folks that occasionally get called out for not participating in the community the way they used to, not giving back. And I won't name any names. You guys can probably think of a few. If you happen to be successful enough that you start a business, you know, you work for company X or Y for a while, and you go out on your own and start a consultancy. So you do the typical entrepreneur thing where instead of, you know, the InfoSec crowd, I like to say that in information security, we tend to be very fond of the 40-hour work week. That's why we usually put in at least 2 every week. As an entrepreneur, it's more than 2 per week, and you're not giving back to the community. On the other hand, if as an entrepreneur, as a small businessman, I hire a couple of people and give them jobs and give them their start, that's kind of giving back, isn't it? Maybe those guys that have just spun up the new businesses and aren't on the con circuit anymore and aren't talking, aren't giving classes, but are giving a paycheck to some of our peers. That's something that we often overlook as being part of it. They haven't turned their back or sold out. They're actually continuing to be a part of it. Anyone have any comments? It's awfully quiet this morning. It's early. Anybody throw anything at me? I'm tearing through this way fast. I guess the coffee break will be a little bit longer. Okay, let's talk about this guy for a minute. As long as I'm doing this, let's get inspirational or whatever. I won't give you the full pitch that I sometimes do with this. This is Isaac Newton. You guys knew that. Kind of a smart guy. Isaac Newton once said, "If I have seen further, it is because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants." Let's think about that for a minute. The guy that changed the way we see the world around us to this day was pretty humble. An interesting observation I have is there are people around the world who are trying to disprove Newtonian physics. There are people that are trying to take us beyond that into particle physics and theoretical physics. And I guarantee you, the people in CERN, Switzerland, at that big tube in the dirt, every day, consciously or unconsciously, they pray that he's right because they want Newtonian physics to hold that stuff inside that big metal tube. So just a little perspective. But the reason I bring him up is because he felt that he had an obligation to move people forward, but he always recognized that we all have people that have helped us. That's what I like to say about him is, let's all be giants. And by giants, I don't mean giant egos. I mean people that provide a shoulder for someone else to stand on. It's a simple, give everybody a little bit of help. Give people a little help when you can. And, the other thing I like to say is wear soft-soled shoes, although I'm wearing the Python Nakonas because we all stand on the shoulders of giants, so let's not be obnoxious about it. But does anybody think, I've railed at you, it's early in the morning, you weren't ready for me, but that's all right. Any comments? Do you have ideas? Do you have experiences? Do you have feedback? Do you think we don't know anybody anything, which may be true? Anybody, That's all right. So with that, I'll say thank you. And I will do this. I plug for a project that I am working on with a bunch of other really smart people. We've taken a break from this. Ironically, we started to get burnout after doing a lot of research on stress and burnout. Thankfully, we had the brains to back out of it and take some time off. But we're going to be diving back in. And at that, there's the shameless self-promotion, although anybody wants to find me, that's pretty easy. I am around today and tomorrow, and maybe longer if the airport won't, if I can't get home to Cape Cod. So happy to chat with people at any time. Thank you very much, and thanks.